Welcome to another episode of Set Musings, and today we're going to be looking at Champions of Kamigawa, which is the first set of the block, and it's a large set. 306 cards in this set. So the breakdown in terms of rarity is 110 commons, 88 uncommons, 88 rares, and 20 basic lands, so we get to look at some land artwork. Things to look out for in terms of themes and mechanics and keywords and abilities, which is obviously going to affect how I choose to slice and dice the set, and as you can see we have a number of tabs up here ready to go to do that. So keep an eye out for things like Spirit Craft. You can see here we've got flip cards, legendary cards. So legendary cards were a big thing in the set. It's another set with a heavy legendary presence. Arcane, and then keywords abilities are things like Bushido, Soul Shift and Splice, and you'll see there's a sort of connection between Splice and Arcane. We might see a card saying something like Splice onto an Arcane. I don't know if we've got any here, but we'll see these. Obviously I've separated out these and done searches. So I'm going to scroll through like I always do on the sort of full set search, so we can just get a feel for the overall frames, the sort of flavour of the artwork, and the other things that I've never really spoken about before is obviously things like naming, the way cards are named, which is obviously name choice is very much tied to the themes of the set. And you'll see there's quite a number of subtypes here, which, although you may have seen a particular creature subtype before, you may not have seen quite so many in a single set, and also combinations thereof. So you can see Fox Cleric, Fox Samurai, like Dragon Spirits. There's a splice onto Arcane I mentioned earlier. Got to give some given here. You may again of course notice there's going to be some classic cards in this set, which see play in Eternal formats. And again, when we get to the part of the video where I sort of scroll through and see where the $10 threshold is currently for cards in the set, stuff like that bounces out real well in terms of, cards that tend to be higher priced because, one, they haven't necessarily been reprinted, and two, they feature heavily in Eternal formats. Oh, there's the Unspeakable. You see there's quite a few spirit legendaries and just legendaries generally. Also, obviously with a heavy presence of legendaries, you're going to see legendaries outside of rare. So you can see there was a number of uncommon legendaries. And then as we move into red, I think Glacial Ray may have even been reprinted in Cold Snap actually. taking a bit more time here because there are a number of really interesting cards in this set, and the artwork as well. Kadama's Reach, so it's really nice when we're doing this overview bit to just dwell on it a little bit longer. So many legendaries. And then we've got a fairly generous amount of artifacts and equipment as well. Equipment artifacts. And if you remember from the previous block I've just done set musings on, equipment had just come in as of original Mirrodin. And you can see here we've got things like Sensei's Divining Top. So, look out for the sort of classic equipment and artifacts in this particular block as well. And there's our basic lands, which we'll revisit. So there was a number of non-basic lands in the set as well. Some legendary lands there, and some dual lands, which again we'll take another look at. So it'd be interesting to see where the mana fixing took you as well, because that's always a good indicator of the sort of colour combinations that they're going to be looking at to promote in the set. So we'll look firstly at the mechanics of the set. So things like the arcane spells and spirits, and the fact that they were they had soul shift and spirit craft and various other things that were attributed to them, and Bushido and flip cards. So let's go in and slice these. Okay, so here's our spirit arcane stuff. You can see there's 18 of those cards, which include spirit and arcane in the oracle text. Looks like maybe we've got 4 in white, red and green, a couple in black and 3 in blue. Now, even though they're spirits and it's not necessarily tied to the colour easy, you'll notice they aren't all flying spirits either. I suppose they don't have to be, but just to point that out. And you can see here, all of these have that whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell, something happens. There's even an artifact here as well, which converts into a spirit artifact creature. So here we got Guardian of Solitude, gains flying until end of turn whenever you play a spirit or arcane spell. So obviously with 18 of these cards, and again, look out here for things that are common, particularly important when we get onto the following episodes to these, the episode, particularly Deck Durdle episode, because if I want to do that, if I want to build a deck around some sort of spirit or arcane spell, this particular trigger, then it's interesting to know what the possibility of that is, based on the amount of commons and uncommons to some degree, because obviously you're going to see more commons in a pool. Again, with this sort of thing, deliberately trying to play this strategy is obviously more better. You're more able to facilitate that when you're drafting, because you can craft your deck a lot better. So what else in terms of themes? So flip cards. So here you go. So you can see just basically in this particular set 2 flip cards per colour. No flip artifacts. So let me see if I can do this. Use this as an example. So Bushi Tenderfoot, single white to cast. When a creature dealt damage by Bushi Tenderfoot is put into a graveyard, flip Bushi Tenderfoot. So this is the bit you cast, just so you know. And then if you flip it, Bushi becomes Kenzo the Hard-Hearted, double strike, Bushido 2. When this blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. And it looks like you'll see here all of these flip cards flip into a legendary. So something happens, or there is some sort of, I wouldn't say criteria, but if that, you can see here there are some with activation costs in them, but it looks like something else has to be true in order for the flip to happen. So I don't see any here. Well, yes, I'm just looking for ones where, you know, the activation cost and that flips it, but generally something is happening as a result of the activation cost, and then if something else, you do get to flip it, or just straight if something, then flip. This one looks interesting here. This one, basically when it does damage, and this one does trigger off this activation. So you do 1 damage. Oh yeah, I suppose that's again it's just if it dies, so you might do something damage and it might not die. So that does look to be the sort of template of that. And it's always nice to, you know, when you're looking at sets, to just see how the basic templating works, how that hangs together. So 75 legendaries in the set. Spread among rare and uncommon. There's no common legendaries. And when we look at some of the cycles, no doubt we'll be looking at particular instances. As you saw, some of the legendaries are flip legendary through being a flip card or flipping into a legendary, and some are just fairly straight. You know, well, the most aren't flip cards. Got a number of pieces of legendary equipment and legendary artifacts as well, and legendary lands. So yeah, if you haven't worked it out already, clearly legendary is a thing in the set. So here's our spells. We looked at spells that were, you know, in the Oracle text, had this spirit or arcane trigger, but there are also specifically arcane spells, obviously, because you can see that one of the choices is spirit or arcane, so we need some arcane spells. Oops, jumped ahead there. So basically either sorceries or instants. Got things like Kadama's Reach as well. And you'll see some of these have splice into arcane. So as you play an arcane spell, you may reveal this card from your hand and pay its splice cost. If you do, as this card's effect to that spell. And you can see all of the splice into arcane does have a cost for that to happen or to be activated. So Hideous Laughter, 2 and 2 black to cast, but which you can splice into Arcane. So as you play an Arcane spell, you may reveal this card from your hand. So obviously this has to be in your hand, and you just play its splice cost. And that's this card's effect gets added to that spell. Bushido. Again with Bushido, another one that's, is on some of the flip cards. You can see there's an appropriate number here. So, and that relates to the number of, or how much of a pump it gets. So this one here, Bushido 1, when this blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. There's one over here, Bushido 5. So when this blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +5/+5 until end of turn. So basically, whenever these creatures get blocked, or it blocks, then that's when the Bushido triggers. And you get so much of a pump based on that. Soul Shift. So with Soul Shift, let's look at this first one, which is 100 Talon Kami. When this is put into a graveyard from play, you may return target spirit card with converted mana cost 4 or less from the graveyard to your hand. So you can see the number in the Soul Shift is indicative of the mana cost of the spirit card which you can return from your graveyard, in terms of it has to be that figure, that number or less. So with this one here, just using these two as an example, you've got Soul Shift 5. So when this goes into your graveyard, you could return, if this was in the graveyard as well, you have a choice. You can either return it, I'll start again. You can return this, but you can't return this because this is a CMC of 6. So this would be okay. This you can't return. So obviously it looks like these have all been costed accordingly. So they can't just return themselves by the look of things. Which I imagine would be very broken. And here's specifically the cards that have splice on them. So the point here is there's 15 cards with splice. If we go back to just the arcane spells, so 44 cards that are arcane, some of which have splice onto arcane in them, some don't, but there's only 15 cards which specifically have splice on them. And as you can see, they're a subset, so they are all arcane spells. Splice onto arcane. As you play this arcane spell, you may reveal this card from your hand and pay its splice cost. If you do, add this card's effect to that spell. It's not symmetrical either, so we've got slightly more in blue than any other colour. So now we're moving on to specific specific cycles. So we have a cycle of Honden, so Honden of something, and they are legendary enchantments. They're all uncommon, and they grant the owner something depending on the number of shrines they control. So they're legendary enchantment shrines. Each of these cards apparently were reprinted in Eternal Masters. And as often is the case, you'll see that the particular something that it grants is very much typical of the particular colour it's in. So with the white one we're getting life gain, with the blue one we're getting card draw, with the black one we're getting discard, with the red one we're getting damage, and the green one we're getting tokens. And we also have a cycle of Myojin, I think that is. So when they enter the battlefield, they have a divinity counter put on them if they were cast, and is indestructible as long as it has this counter. And the counter can be removed for an effect. So you can see each of these has 3 parts to the rules text. They're all legendaries, they're all spirits, they're all at rare. So you can see the first bit, it's the same for all of them. So it's just checking that for that divinity counter to be placed on this card, it has to be played from your hand. And you can see, yep, second thing, all indestructible. So same on all the cards. The third thing in the Oracle text, that's where you get the difference. So in the white one, if you remove the divinity counter, you get to destroy each other creature. So you've got a wrath effect. Card draw on the blue one, discard on the black one, land destructions on the red, and oh yeah, so creatures from your hand on the green. So yeah, they're all pretty powerful. Cycle of Deceivers. These are at common. So you can see if you look at the abilities on these, the casting cost is different for each one. There's a few there. Well, 2 of them, yeah, so 2 have a CMC of 4. 2 have a CMC of 3 and 1 has a CMC of 2. And if you look at this, that again, just comparing these. So first part of the rules text, it's all the same on all the cards. So each one you pay 1 and you get to look at the top card of your library. And for a cost of 2, you get to reveal the top card of your library, and if it's a land, something else happens. So if it's a land, then for the white one, Harsh Deceiver, the card Harsh Deceiver gets +1/+1 till end of turn. You can play this ability once each turn. And I think all of these, have the caveat on them where you can only play each ability once each turn. So the blue one gets +1/+0 and has flying. The black one deals damage to a creature, destroy that creature. And the red one +1/+0 first strike, and the green one +2/+2 and trample. So there are a number of legendary lands, and within that there is a cycle. So you can see we have 8 legendary lands. Legendary lands at rare. So they're all at rare, but in addition to the cycle, we have a number of other lands. So let's go through the cycle first, and we'll look at the other rare legendaries in a moment. So you can see they all tap for the appropriate colour without any conditions. So there's no, come into play tapped or this. They just function like a regular land in that respect, but they have a secondary ability on them. So on the castle, we've got 1 tap, prevent the next 2 damage that will be dealt to to target legendary creature this turn. The blue one, blue tap, untap, target legendary permanent. The black one, black tap, target legendary creature gains fear until end of turn. So they all target legendary creatures with something. So the red one, it gets first strike until end of turn, and the green one gets +1/+1. And then there's 3 other legendary lands which aren't part of the cycle. We've got Bushido, who shelters all, comes into play tapped, tap, play 2 life, add 1 colourless mana to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on an instant or sorcery spell, that spell can't be countered by spells or abilities. Hall of the Bandit Lord, it comes into play tapped. You can see all 3 of these come into play tapped. Tap, pay 3 life, add 1 to your mana pool. If that mana is spent on a creature spell, that creature has haste. Tap, pay 2 life, add 2 to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to play legendary spells. So you can see this additional ability, they all require payment of life, and there is a tie-in to the type of spell that it is. So yeah. Oh yeah, cycle of legendary dragons, specifically spirit dragons. So they all have flying, and with these they all cost 6 mana, although some of them are double or even triple of the particular colour. And the ability triggers when the creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield. So for the white one, a target player skips his or her next untap step, tap up to 5 target permanents that player controls. The blue one, you gain control of target creature. The black one, each player loses 5 life and you gain life equal to the life lost this way. No, sorry, each opponent. Sorry. The red one deals 5 damage to each creature without flying, and the green one, you get to distribute 5 +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures. We have a cycle of Zubira. So these are all at common. They're all 1/2 Zubira spirit creatures. They cost 1 and a particular colour of mana. And they have a target ability when it goes to the graveyard that grows with each Zubira put into the graveyard from the battlefield this turn. So when this is put into the graveyard, you gain 2 life for each Zubira in the graveyard. The blue one, you draw a card for each one. The black one, an opponent discards a card for each one. For the red one deals damage to target creature equal to the number of Zubira in all graveyards. And again, notice this one's a bit different. So these ones here, you can see they're put into a graveyard from play. This one is equal to the number of Zubira in all graveyards from play this turn. And then the green one, we're back to into a graveyard from play this turn. I wonder if that is any different. I'm just trying to get my head around the wording there. So when Dripping Tongue Zubira is put into a graveyard and play, put a 1/1 colour spirit token into play for each Zubira put into a graveyard from play. For each that died this turn. Let me check that. Yeah, so no. Ultimately it's the same thing. They must just chosen to word that different. So I'm looking at the final Oracle text. For each Zubira that died this turn. A number. Yeah, it's just the wording, I suppose, or has to be worded for damage. Okay. Oh, this sometimes happens. Got that in there twice. So, in terms of the flip creatures, you've seen there are 10 in total. So there's 5 at rare. So I suppose the theme here, what underlying it all, so the idea behind the flip cards is they sort of come into play as, and I'm reading out from the sort of MTG wiki article here, they come into play as a humble youth and they flip to become a legendary master. So there's this sort of apprentice master relationship between the two, or novice and master, I suppose. I'm looking to see here, it looks like with these, yeah, no, they are different. I thought maybe this was like an amplified version of the previous, the sort of the novice version or the humble youth version and the master version, but this one clearly is different, because in this form the ability, one of the black target opponent discards a card, and if that player has no cards in hand, flip it, and the master version, at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, that player loses 1 life for each card fewer than 3. So there is a relationship, I suppose, to the hand, but this one has effect on life. Whereas this one here, it is card draw, and this is just a much more amplified version of the card draw. Same here, they relate to enchantments here. But in different ways. Interesting. And this one cares about land, whereas here it's putting tokens into play, or putting a token into play. So this is the uncommon cycle from the 10 total. And again, some of these have a bit of a close, the way they relate, the two abilities, if you like, on the for the humble youth version versus the master version. Some are a lot more tightly related. So here, you see the flying effect gets amplified across all creatures. There is sort of a relation through damage. So when a creature is dealt damage by Bushi Tenderfoot, this turn it's put into a graveyard. Flip it, so that's triggered by damage, and then over on the master side, it's doing double strike, so it is double damage. So there is a sort of damage relationship, and additionally, it's got Bushido on it. There's some graveyard shenanigans going on this card. We've got direct damage here, which appears to be slightly greater in the master version, and with tokens here, you can see bigger token. Oh, sorry, no. So it's always funny when you're reading it upside down. It's amazing that how your brain jumps to conclusions. My mistake. So this side is generating tokens. The flip is actually doing pump. So yeah. So cycle of slow lands. I may have also forgotten something here. There's a cycle of flash enchantment creatures. I should I must have gone wrong there. Let me quickly, I'll do it here. So flash enchant creatures. So that would be an oracle text of flash, and we want the type as an aura. Let's see if I can bring this up. There we go. So yeah, those are the that's that cycle. So each of these aura enchantments has flash and enchant creature. That's what the cycle was about. And obviously they have a slightly different effect, enchantment effect on them. Right, back to these. So we've got a cycle of slow lands. So just, when they come into play, they're sort of ready to go. There's no tapping at that point. And you can happily tap them for colourless mana. But if you choose to tap them to generate the allied colours that they represent, then they don't untap during your next untap step, so hence they're slow. They're actually functional reprints of the allied dual lands in Tempest. And as I mentioned, there's one for each of the allied colours of mana. We've got a match pair, so Rend Spirit and Rend Flesh. Rend Flesh, 2 in a black, destroys a target non-spirit creature. Rend Spirit, 2 in a black, destroys a target spirit. And now let's go back to the different types we've got in the set. So we've actually got 152 creatures in the set. So yeah, a bit of a contrast to the previous block with all the artifacts and artifact creatures. So we've got you could say a triumphant return of full-on creature combat here. And although obviously there was creature combat in the previous set, there was very much revolved around, artifacts, affinity for artifacts, equipping up creatures, doing sort of Voltron type stuff, I suppose. Whereas this, if you look at it, there's this sort of stuff going on through Bushido, which very much cares about the combat side of things. And other things like, soul shift when stuff dies. So I would say it's a pretty, combat focused set, which, obviously ties in perfectly with the particular theme of the set. Got 43 instants. Have a quick look and see what we've got anything outside of the cycles we've looked at, because we've already looked at splicing onto Arcane and stuff like that, and Arcane spells. But I'm always on the lookout for things like, in instant speed, removal, and the usual instant speed classic stuff that you would see in the different colours. We have a way of dealing with enchantments at instant speed in white. It's interesting. We've got a pump spell on blocking creatures. That's all blocking creatures get +7. Wow. Okay. Yeah, and again, white instant speed removal. If it's not some sort of mass removal type spell, is often tied to damage or combat or blocking. And you can see that in this card here. It's got a bit of mill going on as well, instant speed mill. And again, in blue, wouldn't be any surprise to see set specific counter spells. So this set, heavy spirits and arcane spells. So we have a counter spell to deal with that. Oh, there we go. The classic sort of instant speed flying spell in blue, bounce spell in blue. Well, that's rare. Card draw for 1 actually. Tapping and untapping. So twiddle type effect, I suppose. If I got the right card. Draw 2 cards and then discard a card. If you played a spell named Peer Through Depths and a spell named Reach the Mists this turn, you may search your library for a card named... Oh yeah, I've completely forgot about that. Yeah, there's I don't even know what you would call that. We've seen that, a similar idea with, was it Witch's Cauldron, those Newt and the other one. So I'm trying to think of the best term for that. Like I don't want to use the word cascade, but this idea, this like a causal set of spells where it's okay, if you played this and you played this, then you get this. So if we were to play Sift Through Sands, Peer Through Depths and Reach Through Mists this turn, then we get to hunt down the unspeakable and put it into play. So let's keep our eyes open. Let's try and, here we go, there we are, look. Peer Through Depths, Reach Through Mists. So let's see how the cost of this is, because this will give us an idea. So these are all at common. So combo, 1 and a blue. Look at the top 5 cards. Let's see how these sort of mesh together. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So the act of doing the Peer Through Depths could potentially grab one of the others. We've got Reach Through Mist, which is draw a card, and then Sift Through Sand, which is draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And that's the one that has this on it. So the unspeakable, and I don't think we did see it earlier. Let me try and find, because I know it's a legendary. Is that legendary? Oh, go back one. So it's a legendary blue spell. What happened to that? Strange. Oh, I went straight past it. The unspeakable, 6 and 3 blue, 6/7 flying trample. Whenever the unspeakable deals combat damage to play, you may return target arcane spell from your graveyard to your hand. So are they? They're all arcane spells. Although you couldn't have obviously two legendaries in play, so not on your side of the board. Oh, I've got time stop. Just ends the turn. Counter target spell with converted mana cost 4 or less. Counter target activated ability. So a number of different ways of countering different things. Black, let's have a look at the removal in black. Hideous Laughter, 2 and 2 black. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Plunder, -5/-5. Rend Flesh, we saw already. And Rend Spirit. So they're really specific instant speed removal spells. What's our direct damage look like? We've got Glacial Ray. Oh, there's a gain control spell in red for non-legendary creatures. There's a Desperate Ritual, which gives us 3 red for 1 and a red, and also splice onto Arcane. 6 damage, conditional. 3/0. Spell redirection, instant speed, obviously. Haste. 3 damage spell. But it does exile. If you actually destroy it. So 2 and a red for 3. Kadama's Might. +2/+2. +X/+X. Based on the number of lands, strength of cedars, and wear away. Green way of dealing with artifacts or enchantments. Here's our sorceries. That's interesting. So we've got enchantment destruction, tap down, and life total redistribution. So in blue we got card draw, bounce, more bounce, library manipulation. Oh yeah, Befal's in here. Destroy target land or non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. So that's a reprint from 7th edition. Here's a few reprints in here. Actually, Lures in here and Stone Rain as well. Dance of Shadows. Devouring Greed. Distress. Swallowing Plague. X damage black spell. X damage black spell, but also life gain for you. Card discard. Lava Spikes in here. 3 damage. Single red at sorcery. It's arcane. We've got Stone Rain. Destroy target land for 2 and a red. 1 damage spell. Exile. Got a Commune with Nature. Way of tutoring for creature cards in the top 5 of your library. Also land destruction in green as well. Extra effect there if the land is legendary. Gale Force. So you sometimes get these green spells which do damage to flying creatures. Card draw based on playing creature spells. That's interesting. It's in green. We've got basic land tutoring, life gain based off land, number of land, and legendary creature tutoring into your hand. So lots of interesting stuff going on. Here's our enchantments, 26 of those. We've got Ghostly Prism in here. You can see a number of extra subtypes. So we've got these shrines which we saw earlier. There's some auras here. There's Lure. Here are artifacts. So 22 artifacts. That includes the equipment in there as well. Creature can't be the target of spells or abilities. Prevent all combat damage. Okay, interesting. So that's 2 to equip, 4 to cast. Interesting bit of lockdown there. Oh yeah, it's got Conda's banner in here. 2 to cast. Can be attached only to a legendary creature. Creatures that share a colour with equipped creature gets +1/+1. Creatures that share a creature type with equipped creature gets +1/+1. So obviously great in you know, where you really control the colour of your creatures in tribal. So yeah, this is obviously, and of course on a commander where you're doing tribal. Yeah, awesome card. Got Sensei's Divining top. 1 to cast, 1, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. Tap, discard a card, then put Sensei's Divining top on top of its owner's library. So you've probably seen, if you're familiar with Magic, you've probably seen there's a number of quite notable cards in here. Sensei's 1. We've got Time Stop, Glimpse of Nature, Azusa, Kiki-Jiki is in here, Lava Spike, Takino, and Hideous Laughter. And they're all sort of famous for various reasons. And again, I'll include the link to the Wikipedia article so you can see what these different cards, why they're sort of notable, because it's all different reasons. Not just the fact that they're heavily playable, but there might be certain thing about the card itself in terms of how it's formatted. Tenza Godo's Maul. 3 to cast. Equipped creature gets +1/+1. As long as it's a legendary, it gets an additional +2/+2. As long as it's red, it has trample. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff in here. Oh, I'd completely forgotten about this one. And as we go through the set, we'll see other notable artifacts and enchantments, I'm sure, as we go through the sets in the block. So here's just the equipment on its own. So eight pieces of equipment. Here's all of the non-basic land. So we've looked at all of these in one shape or form. There's the 5 legendary lands are rare, the cycle of those. There's the 5 slow lands, 2 colour lands at uncommon, and then there's the other lands I mentioned earlier, the other legendary lands. In addition, one we haven't seen yet is Forbidden Orchard. So this is a rare as well, but it's not a legendary. That's why we've not seen it yet, and it's not part of any cycle. Tap, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. Whenever you tap Forbidden Orchard for mana, put a 1/1 colour spirit creature token into play under target opponent's control. And finally, the best bit here. So here's our 20 basic lands. So 4 pieces of artwork in each colour. Here's our plains. Look at this. Our islands. Our swamps. The mountains are particularly spectacular, I think. Look at that one. I won't do the guess the most expensive card for each colour, because I realise now we're nearly coming up for an hour, so. But what I did want to do is just get a rough idea. So let me just click on here. Oh yeah, not too bad. Like you know, some of these older sets, because of the artwork and the fact it's super popular, the prices can, you know, get up to over $1, even more, depending on some, you know, full artwork stuff. So it doesn't look like there's anything much over 60 cents US. You can see, I mean, that's different artwork anyway, so it's a bit misleading. Yeah, it's not. You can see the obviously unhinged artwork we've got up here, which is completely different, but yeah, it gives us some idea of the sort of prices that obviously basic lands can rise to. So it looks like the blue ones are the most expensive. Done now exactly what I said I wasn't going to do, but never mind. It's easy to get sucked down a basic land rabbit hole. Okay, that's cool, yeah. So I don't think I particularly dislike any of that land, actually. I just really like these, particularly this and this, and the forest as well. It's funny because this reminds me, I got out in the you know, where I live, pretty close to what you could call a wilderness area, but some of the woodland, because it's quite close to swamp areas as well, you get this really gnarly woodland where, you know, it's like got loads of moss. The trees are sort of pretty much died because there's just too much water. Sort of obviously messed them up, and yeah, there's areas that look a little bit like this. Not all of it, but some of it. Cool. Okay, so there's a set as a whole. I don't think there's anything else I particularly want to highlight. I suppose I could have in fact, let's do that, seeing as it's a legendary set. Okay, so here's all my legendaries. So we should be able to sort these by EDH ranking. So we'll just see what the most popular legendary is in that's listed in EDH Rec. So Azusa, Kikijiki, Shurizo, Kakusho, Manamo. Got a legendary land in here. There's Godo. Obviously, number of these just get played in any deck, and aren't a commander. And yeah, it's not surprised to see those kicking in. So, in terms of Asuja, how popular is Asuja? Not. Okay, so not super popular. 840 decks. At least against that database anyway. So I just want to make sure I made a mistake here when I did the sort. Yeah, okay. Hang on. Oh, no, I have got it. That's interesting. It doesn't. That's changed, hasn't it? I don't remember it being like this last week. Okay. Yeah, it looks like they've slightly changed this. Well, we'll find out in a moment because I'm going to go through something. But yeah, the way they report that has changed. Okay. You learn something new every time you do this. So we had a quick look at, went back and had a look at the legendaries, but I'm not going to scroll through the whole of this again. I think we got a pretty good idea about the set now. And most expensive card, which is also banned in a number of formats. $56 for a Sensei's Divining Top from Champions. It's been reprinted in Internals around about the same price, but it was also in from the vault. Shizo, next most expensive, did crop up as a mystery booster foil, $34 as in this one. You can see here, you know, a lot of these not reprinted except in special sets. Roshiji, 33. Yep. Shinka, 32. Nature's Will, 31. Glimpse of Nature, 25. You can look, that's another one that's banned there. Whenever you play a creature spell, this turn draw a card. Yeah, banned in Modern. All of the Bandit Lord, 23. Kakusho, 21. I suspect we're going to get a lot of cards here that are above $10. Forbidden Orchard's in here. Bua Mask, 17. If a player would draw a card, that player exiles that card face up instead. Each player may play lands and spells cards from among cards they exile will Uber's Mask this turn. Interesting. I just was completely unaware of this card actually. Minamo, $16. So we're probably going to see all these legendary lands now. So Kiki Jiki's been reprinted a few times. It's $13 in Champions. And it was also reprinted in Time Spiral Remastered. Marinora. I don't know what actually UK is. Whether it's a publication. Unless that's an online only. Yeah, I don't know. If anybody knows what this Hatchet UK is, please comment. I'd be curious. $12. Shishiro the Anointed. Oh yeah, this is the Snake Tribal. There you go. You get into Snake Tribal with a commander that's just over $10. Doshan. Players can play spells only during their own turns. Nasty. There's Souza. It's been in the corset of you. Well, one. Conda. And then just under it for Myojin. That was a pretty good run actually there, although we started off around $56. There's a number of cards that are above $10 in this set. And then we've sort of looked at part of this already. So this is as it compares against EDH Rec across the set as a whole, not just legendaries. So yeah, no surprise. Kadama's Reach is in the set. Sakaru, Tribe Elder, Sensei, Ghost Prison, Azusa, Forbidden Orchard, Kiki Jiki, these legendary lands. You also have useful utility on them. Kakusho, there's those sort of, what do you call it, dragon spirits. There's Raishi. So anything that plays green, you're probably going to find Kadama's Reach. Maybe they didn't change it. Maybe they just slightly. Maybe it just looks different when it's a lower number. Yep. Maybe they didn't. Okay, so that's this set Musings done with. In terms of what else to look forward to for this particular set, so no real change at the moment at all. We've got a deck Durdle episode based on a 6 booster virtual card pool from Champions. Got some artifact action here, so I have to see where we go with that. I don't know why we've got a mountain, but never mind. I'm not sure the point at which they started introducing basic lands into boosters, actually. That's going to come up at some point. So the theme decks for the set, we've got Kami Reborn, which is black-green theme deck. It's got a name death aspect in it. We've got Snake's Path, which is it's green, mono green. Junko Bell and Orichi Hatchery. So you'll see that Orichi's here, they're snakes. Oh, I keep forgetting that, yeah, of course, some of these were uncommon. It's too late now, I've already chosen, I think. I was thinking I could have done a snake tribal. Kimono. So the Spirit Bane one is a red theme deck. And then Way of the Warrior, Bushido. So what I wanted to do, and the way I'm sort of going with this over time, is I'm going to try and play to the be sort of biased towards more the themes of the set where I can. So you might see that for certainly, if I'm doing deck building in the Deck Durdle episode, I might try and build a deck which plays closer to the theme of the set rather than just try and focus on what might be a strongest deck. So I'm more interested in more sort of setting myself a goal of doing that. So with these, I'm obviously when I do the Deck Durdle episode, I'll try and maybe focus more on Bushido or spice onto Arcane, that sort of stuff. But also, it's probably going to happen, and it's been happening slowly anyway with the Commander Fodder episodes. So for the Commander Fodder episode, I'm going to take the Way of the Warrior deck. It's made a little bit easier because in these sets, obviously, I think all the decks probably have have a legendary in them, and obviously we're going to make Takino Samurai General our commander, and I'm going to build a mono white basically mono white samurai deck. That's the plan to see. And again, I say I'm going to build part of the fun of this is using the algorithm to see what it uncovers. But yeah, certainly going forward, I've decided that that's what I want to more try and gravitate towards is picking something that's going to show off a particular keyword or ability or theme of the set. And I know I've obviously with certain episodes I have been able to do that already, but I've not been quite so conscious or created that as a sort of point of gravity as I am going forward. And I think that's going to help me a little bit better when we come on to later sets where maybe the intro decks as they became weren't so strong, and I might have to slightly tweak the seed pool for the Commander Fodder episode accordingly to make it more interesting and not just turn it into a mess of good stuff of a particular colour. So there we have it. That's another set musings in the can. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. These are always fun to make. I always feel super laid back after I've done them, so hopefully I didn't slow down too much. I've looked at the time and it's like 1 hour 10, so that was rather long. I did get rather relaxed about halfway through. So yeah, thanks once again for watching, and bye for now.